Hello everyone, and welcome back to Tutorials of Tone. My name is Alex. Thank you so much for watching this video. Our topic for today, acoustic presets. In particular, the one that I've created for my TOD10N. This is the Tim Henson signature nylon string from Ibanez. This is a wonderful thin-bodied nylon acoustic. This is great for not only playing those Polyphia riffs that everyone else seems to know and I don't, or for practicing electric lines. This is a really great tool to keep you honest, keep your mistakes loud and with this little sound hole in your face, shooting right at you. But this is also a great gigging instrument for classical players. If you're trying not to bring out your $2,500 or $5,000 Keikos or Benfield, this is a great inexpensive alternate, and with the tactics we're going to go over today, you can get a very great classical traditional tone out of this instrument. Let's dive right in. So here we have our preset for the TOD10N, which I've titled Onyx. Now we're going to dive into all of the components, but I always feel it's most important, especially with acoustic guitars, to hear the guitar from input to output directly so we know what our input signal sounds like, and we can tailor things to the guitar specifically. So here's what it sounds like au naturel. A really nice, even tone, but very much used in the Polyphia sense, which is what it's designed for. So a lot of brightness, a lot of clarity and attack, not an overwhelming bottom end. I am keeping the EQ on this guitar completely flat, everything at noon, including the volume. So now we are going to dive in to some treatments. So first up in our chain, the input block. Everything here is at stock settings entirely. Moving on, we go to our compressor block. I personally have grown accustomed to the Studio FF compressor, and I just threw this in there. This really helps keep the attacks even, and when you're playing fingerstyle guitar especially, or single note playing, this is a really great thing to have at the ready. Virtually stock settings. The release time is down to 63.25 for milliseconds. I've turned the auto makeup gain off and changed the level to 6.5 dB to compensate. This is a really great tool, again, for evening out your playing, or to engage if you're going between strumming and single note picking, to bring that out a little bit. Up next in our chain is the amp block. As you can see, in scene 2 for the DI, the cab block is bypassed, but we are still using this amp block, our tube pre, to get a more DI'd signal and keep things at unity gain. So the bass is down a bit, mid's up a tad, the cut switch is engaged, and the depth is brought up a little bit for the power amp low end brought after the fact. The master volume on the tube pre can be turned up. You don't have to fear distortion unless you're really cranking that, but it's a really great way to get that level up and usable. I have nothing to speak of for low cut, but an 8500 Hz high cut in the input EQ section, and nothing to speak of for the output EQ. Moving to our multi-band compressor, I've dialed up some stock sort of things for my settings in acoustic world. We have our mid crossover just below 300 Hz, and our crossover for the highs just above 1200 Hz. Everything is set evenly at 8 dB, so this again helps boost the level to a healthy unity gain level, but this is really great for keeping all of your frequencies in check. Think of this as an active 3-band EQ, where when you start digging in, maybe you have a lot of low end going into it. It'll temper that a little bit at whatever ratio you set, which here is just below 2:1, keeping things nice and smooth, more of a transparent multiband compressor. So we'll see if some strumming playing will bring these different bands into play. So as you can hear, not a lot of low end to our ear with the DI signal, but we do have a little bit of that attenuation and certainly some above 1200 for those high end clicks. And every now and then one of the mids, but this is a very forward sounding instrument. Next up, we have the enhance block. This is really just used to stereoize your signal. This is a great thing to have if you are running both outputs or you're recording in stereo. This just takes your mono signal and splits it. Note that this has to be near the end of the chain in order to do that. All of your mono signals have to be before it, which we will get to in a moment. And last but not least, in the chain we have our music hall reverb, which just gives us a nice squish into the real world and really puts that professional garnish onto our tone. You can choose any of these wonderful reverb types. I've stuck with the music hall and really liked it, but I've also dabbled in a few other things here and there, medium halls, even using things like vocal plates. Just something to give it a little bit of breath so it's not this stark, dry reality. Really great for recordings, somewhat important for live performing, especially if you're doing solo performances. But when you're in a band mix, not as necessary, especially in a big hall. So, with that being said, we're going to dive into the treated sort of scene. This will change the tone drastically, and we will A/B the two in a moment. We can see we still have the same Studio FF compressor going on, same settings. We still have the same tube preamp. Everything kosher so far. Next up in our chain, the cab block. Now this is where things get really special and take this tone to another place. We will A/B this with the DI in a moment, but this is really special. I'm using free acoustic IRs from Free Acoustic IR. And my friend Wesley hipped me to this site years ago when I got into modeling, and I have been hooked ever since. Whether it's nylon string, steel string, 12 strings, I've used it for a faux mandolin sound. I've even been known to sprinkle those things in with other world instruments that I've recorded with, and they've done wonders. If you do go this route, know that there is a donate button. I highly recommend that you do so, and know that if you get anything from the Gumroad store, namely the acoustic pack, anything that involves these IRs, I will be donating a portion of the proceeds to this incredible catalog. It's just wonderful. And enough talking. Absolutely night and day, right? I mean, the game changing of these IRs. It's just, I absolutely adore them. So this is a Graciliano Perez 48K capture of a nylon string acoustic. I also have my Martin 00018 in here, which is a steel string, but can really add a little bit of clarity. harmonics pop. There's a brightness and a brilliance to it. Definitely something that you can A/B, whether you're in this preset or something you can try with your own presets. Next up in our chain is our graphic EQ. We've got a 10-band variable Q here, and I have two different channels pulled up. Channel A, which we've heard, and channel B. And as you can see, the settings change subtly, but most drastically in the 500 and 1K range. What we've heard so far, I use for single note picking, and is really great for Aldi Meola type stuff, or great for practicing electric lines on the nylon sort of thing. Really pronounce all of your mistakes and get you to play more cleanly. Not even up to speed. That guy, you got to warm up before you play these examples. But if I were to switch graphic EQs, we have a little bit more of a scooped sound, and this is great for classical playing. But for a good A/B example, now to A/B this with classical, we hear this. And as you can hear, a lot more of a forward pronounced sound, but maybe not as traditional in its tonal characteristics, like, say, a Caicos or a Benfield or any amazing nylon classical guitar. This is A/B toggling between these channels and is really great for that live sort of thing. There's also one subtle difference between these two channels, and that is the level control. When I'm playing with this mid-heavy sound, I don't have any level attenuation. But when I switch to that scoop sound to compensate for all of the mids lost, there is an 8 dB level boost. This is a great thing, especially if you're playing fingerstyle and then switching to a pick. You're going to want some sort of level compensation to keep everything nice and even at unity gain. So now we get to the garnishment of the dish. We've done the meat and potatoes with all of the soundscaping. We've done the sculpting of the tone, and of course the reverb, which is a little bit of both of those worlds. First up, we have our digital mono delay. This is put before the enhance, chorus, and reverb blocks because this is a mono signal. Since I am always using stereo delays in almost every rig that I build, it's usually running in parallel with the reverb near the end of the chain, or at the very least near the end of the chain going into the reverb in series. Now, I made a lot of mistakes with that building these initial acoustic rigs. That has all been remedied now, as I noticed the error of my ways in the first acoustic video. But at 33 milliseconds, this is really just getting a little bit more of a fattening sound. And it's not really adding click, 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 cascading delays, which I will show you. So, adds a little bit of fatness to that sound. And of course you can bring this mix up to really accentuate that. You really start hearing that doubling effect at that mix. That's a very extreme example, so mix to taste. Now, as we heard already, we have the enhance block, which is just taking the mono signal, turning it into stereo, and using some time oscillating algorithms to make that sound like a stereo sound. Again, and last up in our stereo effects, we have our chorus block. This is a really great way to just add that moving feature, that oscillating detune for a widening effect. Of course, you can use all of these in tandem, but first we're going to hear this dry and then with the chorus engaged. Very nice effect. And of course, you can change this. You can go in, choose any of these wonderful choruses. You can have far less mix, and you can go to town. Quite aggressive. Turn that down a bit. Just a nice way to fatten up your tone. Of course, you can run an enhancer into that and all of that into a reverb. Quite the combination, quite aggressive. And then, of course, you can add fattening. What a wonderful set of effects that we have at our disposal. And of course, you can do anything with this. For example, tonight, right before taping this, I played a Heart tribute show. I got to play this guitar, and it's centered around the unplugged thing, right? We go into Barracuda. You can use your flanger on this and get a really fun tone, going straight to the CUDA flange. Anything is possible with the Fractal systems, and don't feel that you have to be a traditional player just because you're playing a traditional instrument with nylon strings. The sky's the limit here. And of course, you also have the option of getting a solo boost, because most of my presets have it. This is just a null 3 dB boost at the end of the chain. This is a really great way to just pop out and go right back. If you have a solo spot or an exposed feature, this is always handy to have at the end of a chain. Might want to consider that. Of course, there are some people who like putting that before the reverb so that all of your tails that are sent into the reverb are accentuated and continue, which we can hear now. So we'll be playing along. But if we have those switched, you're going to be diminishing that reverb. So as you can hear, with the filter at the end, we are dropping the entire level, including the reverb. And that may be something that you want. You want to get out there and get the whole thing back so the soundman's not adjusting his fader in a negative way, keeping everything nice and consistent for you. Maybe you want something a little bit more subtle, as it was with the filter going into the reverb, so the tails are still as loud as they needed to be for the solo, and then you're already back into rhythm playing underneath those tails. It's really dealer's choice on that, and there's so many ways to boost your leads, but this is just one way to do it. And as a nylon player, whether you're playing traditional classical music, or maybe you're going into the Meola realm, or you're doing the electric thing, or the Polyphia thing, this is a great tool to have, and always consider having that at the end of the chain for any number of applications. Well, that about does it on our video explaining how I build presets specifically for the TOD10N from Ibanez. This guitar has been a recent purchase and an absolutely invaluable practice, recording, and performance tool already. It's paid its dividends, and I absolutely adore what I can get out of it with this Fractal system. It's been a blast diving into the free IRs. It's been great getting multiple graphic EQs and different effects on this when I need them for different shows and different recording sessions alike. If you liked this video, there are plenty more videos throughout the channel that you can check out, other tutorials of tone, Fractal 101s, gear reviews, playthroughs, etc. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.